ahead with implement the system. So we need to identify what kind of architecture that you need to adopt according to the requirement itself. All right. So when you're talking about requirement, we discussed earlier before on the various type of system. Okay. So is it a single application? Okay. A single application means your system and your database in the same peripheral. And then one PC in your database, your system, in that particular hardware. Okay. So it's not shareable, right? So that one means that everything in a particular PC or laptop or whatever, right? So no communication or multi-user. It's a single user, even though it's multi-user, but single active at particular time. Okay. Even though that is approach is not really well in terms of right now solution, but that approach is still available. Okay, especially when you deal with a very high secure system. Right. Nowadays, if you do a lot of communication already secure, and many technology on secure the communication. Therefore, we can have more architecture suitable for multi-user accessing from anywhere, right? So if you look at the uh, architecture, after that we have the single operation, and then we got centralized solution. Mean the server, the one server, and the user is at the dumb terminal. It's like a bank style, right? So they call it central architecture. Then got server and client server, but it's a central. And another approach is distributed. Okay, so you have many server. Okay, and partly your software and your hardware is distributed in different places. Even though the database also may distributed, some part in here in the different database server and some part in different server. Okay, so that one is more the architecture is more flexible, okay, to be applied in most application when the security is already applied, in especially on the web-based application. Right now we go ahead with the most popular, okay, architecture that we call it applying the reuse and secure. Even though apply the easy to maintain, right? So the architecture that we need to adopt is known as a model view controller architecture. Okay? So it's a kind of design pattern on architecture designing software, applicant software. Okay? So we try to separate the model view controller. Therefore, your system is more maintainable, and the same time is has criteria of openness. The mean of openness means that you may apply database in different database. Your software development in different software development. The UI is maybe different type of UI. Okay, so this is a different a model architecture that we need to adopt. Right? If you are applying if you are development from the scratch without applying the MVC, right? So your software is very dedicated for particular database or particular programming or software developer, right? So if you want to adopt for others, means that you need to transform. Okay, so that is a lot of job to do it, right? So we applying for design pattern MVC, which is adopt the criteria of flexibility, reuse, easy to maintain. Yeah, so this is the architecture. And when we design the software, okay, so we apply the MVC architecture, all right? So in terms of software development, later you decide. Because of if you want to apply the MVC, you need to adopt the framework or the environment that apply this architecture. Whereas you have to develop your own, means you need to develop your own model separate in different layer, to support the MVC. All right. Okay, so why we focus on MVC? Okay. Okay. MVC is model view controller architecture. Okay. Usually when we apply the MVC is a web-based application. Nowadays, even though you are applying any software, when you're applying the web-based application, actually you applying the MVC, which is N-tier application. Okay. You got three layer of architecture. Okay. Got 3-layer architecture. All right. So if you applying for the single, is 1 layer. Client server is 2 layer. Mean you got client and server who responded. And if you are applying the MVC is 3 layers. So you have another layer, okay, another layer which is support already built in the web-based application, because you got the server to the controller to align between the within the client and the server. Okay, so it's more flexible. Okay, because web application, like even though you're saying about mobile apps, or any associate with the web application, go through the internet. Okay, so basically that is a web application. Okay, so MVC is fundamental and high design pattern for programming. If you look at the software development, especially on J2EE, okay, if you are web based, maybe you apply extending of PHP, you using the Laravel. Okay, there is more others, framework that we can use it, support the MVC, which is similar. Okay, with can be used as well. So we already discussed this one, what is design pattern, but the design pattern that we focus on here today is design pattern. One of design pattern is on the architecture solution, right? So what is MVC? Right? This is a design pattern for architecture web-based application. It's very rare now. People are using the second layer architecture. It's not really like open, compared with the web-based application. So when we apply the MVC, okay, the good things MVC across, we can use it many language, okay, and implementation framework. You can use a lot of framework that apply the MVC right now nowadays. Okay. So the purpose here is to achieve the clean separation between the 3 components in most web application. Okay, because in most web application we have 3 important component, right? 3 component, right? Which is model, business logic, and processing. This is what we did already finished from last semester. Okay, understanding requirement and come up with the business logic and the processing, and we already learned on how modeling until the sequence diagram, all stuff, activity diagram, all is representing the model, business logic itself. So all core before we focus on here. And this semester also we learn on the UI, how the user interface associate with the business logic. Okay, but what we want to do it is the in the UI is in separate. Okay, and then we have another is controller. Okay, navigating the input when you key in value, and you need to check and do something before you submit to the model. Right. So we learned already on model and how interaction. In modeling sequence diagram, which only focus in here and also the controller, all right, how relationship the business model, the class model, the class model domain with the controller. And also we learn already how it associate with the UI. Okay. And today we will go ahead refining the sequence diagram later between the three of these, how it connecting, all right, in sequence diagram. Okay. So basically we have the 3, we separate these 3, the model in 1 layer, the controller in 1 layer, and view in 1 layer. Okay. So the model will be the state, the response, the query, the functionality. That's why we have a methods a lot in models, notifying if any changes or whatever. There is a lot activity based on logic process, in the model. All right. So view is basically the UI, okay? Sender to the models, okay? Request update from the models, okay? Send user sketcher or controller, okay? Allow controller to select something from to the controller. So basically the view is UI sending something to the model, or it may as well goes to the controller and the controller will change the model. So there is a possibility you can go ahead from view to model and to the and from the to the controller, right? So based on response view, go ahead to any changes from the model, or it may as well, you can get the view something from the controller as well. So depending on what we get the information, all right? So what we learn when we write down the sequence and the two column, remember the two column main scenario. So it's basically it's a lot of from the view, send the controller, okay, and then later at the end model respond, okay, to the view, okay. So that is usually the response goes to the view, right, from the model respond to the event from the actor and from the system, right. So what is the benefit from MVC? Okay. First, separation constant in code base. Okay. So basically, you have a programming for the view. We have a different layer, right? So when we're talking about different layer, usually we in implementation concept is like you have a own directory, own directory in view. Okay. All the class associate to the UI, you put it in the view, okay, and in a same directory, right? And model, you have your own directory, for the model only, okay. Even though in the model may have many layer, so you may have a sub package there, depending on the how complexity of your designing, depending on the complexity of the system, that you may have sub directory or sub package in the model itself. At the same time, we have one, so this is for the controller in a different layer. Okay, so therefore separation constant on the code base. We have a code for view, code for modeling, and code for controller. When you got separate like this, when we got a separation on constant, the association here, is easy to maintain. If you want to change something, from the view, let's say I have a model, I want the view before in different, I want to apply it using the J2E, J swing, for instance, right? Okay, so we can plug in the view using the different UI component, but the logic remains same. You can connecting with the logic remain same, right? So this is the good things in applying the MVC. Secondly, develop specialized and focus. Okay, so if you are from the students who doing the computers multimedia, for instance, so you're focused on the view. You're not focusing on the designing. But for SEIS is focusing a lot on modeling. All right, modeling and control. And for multimedia, maybe focus on view and control. Right. So different people expert in different area, so can have a quality software development based on their expertise, right? And secondly, applying with MVC, we can have parallel development by separate teams. So for instance, you have big models designing, and you have separate in different package, you have separate different package. This is for use case 1, 2, 3, one package, one team. And then you got use case 4, 5, 6 is different team, and they can do parallel, okay, because they have their own separation software development. Okay, so this is most recent architecture apply for current software development. Okay. So this is explanation for what I'm saying just now, okay? All user use can be reused, allow multiple user touching, okay? You design the UI, you're not touching about the business logic. People who doing the business logic, they focus on business logic, all right? And then the same time, you no need have a repetition a lot, because when you have reuse, same, so you can share the code. Okay. Because usually a lot of function when we do it the programming, we'll be repeating the same function. For instance, you want to add, for instance, add, let's say, members. Okay. You have a same screens in it, but when you add it, you'll be use the same screen as well. All right. So you're not using the different screen. So this is what we call it shareable. Okay. You just using the same thing, but you just adding more the mood only. Okay. This is mood add. This is the mood edit. So will be logically only, right? In the model itself, right? But for the UI, you will be, the same interface as well, right? So this is encourage, discourage, cut and paste, repeating code, streamline, upgrade or maintenance tasks. Okay. So if you have a different logic in different places, okay, if you have repeating, and if you change something, you may don't know, there is more changes, the same logic, happen, and because you not reuse, right? So this is the problem with the if you're not applying the MDC. Okay. So this is similar I mentioned just now. Okay. The importance of separation constant, separate the view in different complexity. Okay. And the model work for particular domain, right? So this is other people who specialize something, So people who doing the UI, they're doing the more UI things. Okay. People who focus on interview, upgrading the model logic, they focus on the logic, right? So similar this one, special focus, UI focus on UI, gated block, okay, but not focus on the business logic. People who business logic focus on the business logic, and they're not really a lot looking on the UI as part, Similarly for parallel development, okay, so if you have a business, you can separate okay, business logic in a team, and you can do work together, right? So if the rules change, and then you can revisit, okay, and then changing according the team. Okay, for instance, easy. If you have many team develop the system, of course, the logic, for instance, for login, for instance, maintaining the login, an error of login, maintain, all is same thing actually. From which team it will be used as well. Okay, so you can share that particular something that is shareable and something that not in this particular in your particular area to do it. Okay? And the third thing, the most important when we doing all these eight MVC and become more, good in terms of separation, okay, is applying the API, okay, okay. The API between mean the glue between model view controller, okay. The API means, when you do the programming, communication between three layer is minimum. That's why when we want to communicate between UI into the model, okay, they not directly goes to a view throws go to the model, okay. So we have to communicate, the UI into the controller. So the controller will logic, and shareable here. And then the API is kind of programming that we sending, by API method of programming. Okay. Therefore, you got separation about the layer is very thin. Okay. Okay. So this is what important in applying the API in this three layer. Okay. So if you applying these three, we have controller can control in different way depending on the requirement of the logic. So we will further look, more detail how basically the model can communicate, in different okay, different like controller communicate between different database. Yeah. See, this is what if you want to the flexibility you want to apply in distribute database, for instance. This is one part of if you want more further detail is on uh, advanced database. I'm not sure you learning on distributed database, right? Because this one how we maintain the system, the maintain the system. It may in many area. Okay, one part that maintenance is the requirement itself, which is what you updating, the system or upgrading the system. The second part looking at the non-functional requirement, which is you looking on the how the assessing time, that accepted by the user. So it may associate the upgrading in terms of assessing time is a job of a person, especially on the certificate user certification, extract the data, using the system. So they will look on two part software development. It may on the software itself is associate with the programming method or query method that may cause slow assessing the time. And secondly, it may also associate with the network. Okay, the transfer, because of this is another part, a layer that you have to look at it. Is it because of the network itself? For instance, if you look, I don't know whether you're realizing, if you access internet, from the FTSM comparative from the other faculty, for instance, PTM, for instance, at PTM. If you're looking if you realize, I'm not just sure that you realize or not, assessing FTSM is more slower, all right, compared to others. The reason is why, because of the architecture itself, networking in FTSM are different software of networking, okay, compared to others using the ATM, all right? So even though different networking type, because of you got transaction a bit on changing the networking, okay, type of communication will be slow as well, okay? So it associate with the networking, it associate with the programming, and another part is associated with on database itself, okay? So you are applying small database or huge database, because database is many type, right? And then you also has looking at the angle, if you apply a particular a small database, for instance, right? Your database is like growing, and exceed to maximum. When the data exceed like, how many percent amount of the database, so your system starts slow in terms of assessing. So this is where we learn on we improving in terms of distributed database, right? So all these things, the people who are in the team software maintenance, we calling maintaining the operation of the system, uh, is huge, Okay. However, for your context, you are focusing on the more software development. But networking, you need to communicate with people who using the networking, and you also need to communicate with the people in database admin. Okay. So all these things very important to communicate to make sure the system run accordingly, right? So this is the API. When the API is a communication between the layer, need to be thin. Therefore, your designing of the software is become better, right? When we're talking about separation concern between the layer, means that a layer just do your task in that layer. You not bother about the other layer. The most important, what input you give and what expected you want, okay, for each layer. That's enough, okay. So this is the important in terms of the separation concern. So have a look, a simple of as example MVC to highlight the separation and how the back end not associate with your model is done the job. All right. Okay. So for instance, in here, we have a very simple Okay, view is the UI, basically your UI interface associate to the controller. Okay, and then the controller means that, for instance, in here in view, there is a task. You select a student and you display the student, right? The students, all right, information. So the strategy in controller, you can make a display, a method, if you view a students and controller said display student contact, for instance, all right? And if you want to have a student contact, sure, in the model, okay, in the model domain has information, has a method to get and display the student contact. All right. So maybe you just search a student's name and you select the student name and then you have a display student contact. So the student context, this one, it depending, If I look at this controller means that you display all the students and their contacts because you don't have a pass value here. All right. This is one tag. But it may as well, if you want to display a particular student, for instance, sure, you got another controller, right, to get the student contact pass value with the metric number. So in the model should support whatever you need to provide to the view. So the model here, whatever the model will support all the view requirement from the user. Okay. So you can have, either one like get contact for all the attribute, right? This is the most simplest, You get the contact, then you call. If display contact particular student, include the get name. So in display contact, this one you can call the get contact data, get address, get name, all these include the display context, display student contact. So this is the logic that you want to assess. Depending on the view, what the user interface expected output that you want to view it, right? So this how basically the communication between the UI, the controller, and the model. We will discuss later also how the association model is actually the array in the system, it's not database yet, you know. So later we discuss how basically, the model has controller to communicate with database as well. So this is one very simple MVC apply. As example, you have one method to view, and then what the class diagram, what is the method in the model that you need to call. Right? So controller also may have many methods. Okay, and you can also have many ways, to creating the controller, depending on the requirement, whatever requirement. So you got view one, view two, so different. If the view is same, you can reuse it. But if not, you can come up with the others controller. Okay. So for instance here, uh, a methods controller, because you want have one view, display student contact, and just contact the data only. Okay. Get contact data means that all the provide, the user contact. But you may also have a student contact, but in here you have various, So this is, controller can have many methods, more flexible to be viewed. Why we need to do that? Depending on the view of the requirement that we provide based on the use case. All right. So this is a very, very different, okay, depending on the context, the controller that you create. Okay? But sometimes, a good things in applying the software like a framework, existing framework. Usually the controller is like standard, they create it for you, already. This is a good of the good things. For instance, if you have a standard login UI, right? You have many of standard operation controller already built. Okay, if you are applying the framework, whereas you have to develop all things. For instance, when you doing for the sequence diagram for your system, we assuming, you do it from scratch because you need to understand the step, For instance, the model login, for instance, the use case for login. So you need more detail in terms of the expected, uh, alternative, okay, the main scenario, if this, all testing you need to depends on the user. If the user A depends what happened. If user B, what happened, right? So there is a lot of logic that we need to provide, assuming that you develop your own controller, all right? So the reason is to understand, okay, that the controller that you need to fulfill your operation for each UI that you design. Okay. Okay, so this is the controller job between the view and the model, which is can have many type of controller depending on the flexibility of UI. The second also, we have also the controller between model and database. Okay. So the model and the database, this one need also the controller. Okay, because of when you want to communicate, whatever the model as mentioned just now, it may you develop with a one database, or it may is the multiple database. Okay, so the way you creating this one, is flexible. Okay, so you have this model, but you can communicate with what type of database. It's same. It's just the addressing that you provided in to which database, which the server of the which database server that you apply. So not necessary, in when you create a database and particular database and you cannot using in different database. So here is another control that we need to provide it. All right. Okay. When we look in the context of model itself as class diagram that we all the modeling, class diagram or sequence diagram and activity diagram. So this is basically the model detail that we need it, So we need application state, okay? We need the application rules and persistent data. In the model itself, we have three components that we need to provide in the model itself, Okay, the application state, basically the class diagram. So nouns, object, people. So this is what you do it already, the data model itself. So application is the data model, the data object itself, that we already have, okay, that we discussed before. Is all about when we're talking about the data domain model. So the one is associated with data model. Okay, the data model means that something that you keep it in database later. All right. So the structured everything is inside the data model. The data model is become the permanent data that we transform it into database. But data model is logically that we provide to support the requirement that we defined it before. All right. And in here also got application rules. Okay. Application rules are business logic. The business logic, okay, that we provide inside in our data model. For instance, business logic, for instance, a student may not alter data in his transcript, for instance. Only the student accept application administrator or may modify student contact number. So all this is application rule. So we need to set it, okay, the rules, the logic or the business rule that we have according to the data model. Okay. For instance, a faculty member may view student transcript only if she is a student designed by advisor. So all this thing is called application rules. Okay. So we need to set up, then it include as well in the logic of doing the programming itself. Okay. And the last one is on these are called, the controller associated with database. Usually for this controller, for between the model and database is openness, depending on the component offered by the type of database. Okay, for instance, if you are using, ODBC for microservices, for instance, it's different. You got the ODBC for particular database that you need to communicate. Okay? So the persistent data refer to the long storage data, which is, that you keep it, not the something that you in operation, right? Because the model data provide you the memories, that you access the data from the database into the memory, then you do the operation. But the persistent data, this one, after you keep the data in database and become the data that you keep it. Okay. Later in when you process writing and reading and writing the model into the database. Okay. So the data store may in flat file or may in relation database, so it's very different. So this is another controller that communicate with the type of data that we want to either insert or modify. Right. So this is another layer. Right. So we need another layer here, persistent layer. This is a controller as well, to communicate with database. Mm. So usually we have a component of ODBC, what are ODBC to communicate the particular database. Mm. Right. So that is the three things, in the our model. Okay, we have application rules and also the persistent data that we provide it later. Actually, later we learn on how there is a software, but for me, I prefer you to teach the concept, because when you use the software, then it's just applied and automatic will be generated. There is a software to generate from the model domain into the persistent data database that you need to keep it, right? Okay. When I'm talking about the models, it's like what we did, the model itself, in terms of object-oriented designing database, right? But you need to have the persistence controller here to define transformation into the exactly your database. Okay, whether you are applying here the database using the ODBC of object-oriented ODBC or RDBC, database. Okay, so if you are applying, and then this is the important of the persistent here. Okay, because for instance, you have class called students, with the attribute. So we need to understand about the attribute. The attribute, is it which attribute is become the permanent that you keep it in the database, and which table you exactly you keep the database, right? Usually when we applying whatever the model name, it's become the database name as well to make it easy to maintain. You refer to the class name associated to the database name. Okay. Because a model or a class is associated with a particular file, right? In database file, right? So it's supposed to be like that, but not necessarily all the uh, not necessary all the object in the model domain become persistent, in the database. Because when you design the object, okay, sometimes you just keep relationship on a temporary, right? But when you implement into the logic database, you created the communication by creating the key that you have relationship, right? So it's not necessary the you need a sum of database as well when you keep it in keep the data relationship is not impermanent, right? Okay, later how we try to implement, there is a lot of technology that we can use it, okay, to implement the model, right? So for instance, if you are using the J2E framework, that is to implement, then we need, because of when to J2E means that your framework in object oriented, that if you are using that, you need to keep your data in relational. So there is a software that we use to transform, to create the transformation between the object relational mapping, okay, into the rational database. Okay. So actually the component, this one is a component that we use it, for Java, associated to the relation database. Right. So sometimes you got AJDB. If you are applying the API, there is JDBC API. If you are applying for, ODBC direct for particular database, you have a JDBC, ODBC, something like that, object oriented. Yeah. If you are relational, then you are using the Java RDBC. Yeah. So this is the need to understand in terms of uh, what object that we need and what is the tools that possible, okay, to apply it. Okay. So Hibernate is a software actually it's open source software, that you want to create the database based on your class diagram. Okay, based on that you learn on the concept how can transform manually we can it, but there is a software to transform as well. Yeah. Okay, what the further detail we want to focus on MVC for each component, right? So in the each component view, okay, just now we're looking on the model, looking on the view. So view is showing the what is the element we need in the viewing. And then we also need a viewing technology, right? Sometimes you have templating, styling, decoration. So this is can be applied in decoration pattern, right? So in designing the UI, okay, we need to have a standard element of view. If you are a kind of what kind of input and your viewing should be has a template, standard which applied for almost of the other interface as well, right? Okay. So in view element view, this one is include the what user seen, if web and web based, if the mobile app, and then this the design of the mobile web as well. Maybe you have also has a phone or pocket PC, for instance, so they have their own UI view for particular peripheral. Okay. So this is the most important device that and the browse type as well. So if you have the UI for particular browser, for instance, like Chrome or Muscle Edge, okay. Sometimes they are very particular in terms of you setting for particular browser, okay. If you're realizing, for instance, for the software QR code UKM, right? The system is very tied into a particular Google Chrome. Okay, but it's not workable for if you are using the Microsoft Edge or internet a browser. Okay? I Explore or others. Okay, so this is important as well in terms of understanding the view. This one. Okay, so in view it has a core data. Okay, business logic also button edit, save, navigation if you got, navigate the button to assist the user, okay? And also the skin. Skin is the background or, especially logo, color, footer, or copyright things, you need to provide. So in the view, there is a 4 component important to be focused. Okay? So if you are applying the web application, you may using UI for particular software, for instance, JSB, you may be Java Swing, okay? You can using the Laravel, which is associated with the PHP, okay? That you can, they have their own view technology, okay? Java has many things, Sometimes when you're doing the programming, sometimes you look at the UI, is one of the most competitor. View technology is very important to make it your design is more beautiful. A lot of shareable component that we can make it your view more better. This is already plug and play that you can buy. Okay, all the widget. To provide your UI is more. Need to adopt it. Okay. The second view possible is using the XML pipeline, especially when you applying the two component, okay, communicating. You're not tied to any particular programming, Unicode for transforming component to another component in MVC, right? So you can apply the API and then the data that you transforming in the form of XML. Okay, so it's a free format transaction, right? So if you are applying for a standard, for instance, you are using a particular database, your data in the form of database, that is data that you transform in that particular form, and then will be, very strict format to that particular same database as well, because a database, they have their own Unicode on the data. Okay? So to transforming the view data to the other, we applying the free code, coding, which is like something XML that the receiver will transform it into whatever receiver coding data that to keep it. Right? The last thing is templating. Okay, so template, this one is very important when you designing the system, to make it consistent. Consistent. So the look feel for a particular, suppose, where is your decision on navigation menu, where is the banner, where is the body, where the footer, should be consistent and reused for others UI as well. So template will be shareable. Okay, so I have the experience with the 2 years student already. 2 years I did project with the final project. 2 years already. We have the template, but when the student are separate without guidance, they have different print and look. Okay, so this is not good because of when you design a particular software, right? Your templating should be consistent. Especially the coloring, the standard way you're using the button, the keyword, the name that you use it, the coloring, should be standard. Whereas this is teaching the user learning, fast learning, okay? Fast learning without training, because you already have used the standard templating while you operation a particular function, right? Another important in Vue is styling, okay? Web. So this is the style of look, look and feel website. For instance, what look like your button look like, is it boost or the grass, or just a text, something like that, right? So this is make it your system more UI look good, So you can use the CCS to specify what the color, font, this is the job of multimedia groups, to come up with the CCS. And usually CCS is you buy it, or sometimes a free, that you can use it in plugging in the UI itself, So the more you can buy the CCS, sometimes very beautiful designing that you can reuse it there. Okay. Okay. So another issues in designing the UI is applying the decorating pattern. Okay, it's a one of pattern that apply for object-oriented software development, which is applied the MVC. Okay, so we tried it's suggested, in terms of the have a core business information, which is class diagram itself, Okay, and then you have another decorator provide the template and CCS. So three things advice, three important component to design the UI for a particular system, right? So you need the core business, the template, the navigation, okay, include the HTML reader as well, right? And another is the style of the writing itself in the pattern, in the template itself. Yeah. So this is the solution suggested by decorative pattern, which is you got UI, yeah, and all the UIs associated with the metadata, communicate, right? So this is the main menu that you have, and how basically the welcome associate with the, associate with the main menu itself. So the Keteton pattern suggests, if you want to apply the MDC for the view part, right? You apply the decorative pattern. Okay. You have the side and should be communicate with the skin and the server. Okay. And how basically they communicate with other, background of the system that you associate. Right. So this is more on UI. Associate into the use case and database as well. Right. But this one is very specific on the J2EE, but maybe not apply to other framework as well. Because that framework, they apply their own decorative pattern. Okay. So go ahead with the part on controller. Okay. Controller job is responsible for the controller and control technology. When you want to develop the controller, there is two things. What is the responsibility of the controller? So what is the method for the controller that you can reuse it to fulfill the requirement? And also the controller technology that we want to use it. Okay? So this is the two part that important when you develop using the controller. Okay? So controller, okay, is a one layer between the view and the model. So the job is to request, from the view and then validate the request. Is it okay? For instance, remember when you log in, right? You log in ID and password. So what is the controller need to check? Okay? So this is something that you need to check. At least, you have, when you decide your user, usually the user is freedom or the user you stand depending on your system. User is the login, the user is email, for instance, right? So you already decide at the requirement, the user is name with maximum size what, for instance. So you already mentioned it about that, the user is what. If you are JPJ, for instance, the user is IC number, okay? If you are, so depending on the requirement of the particular student user. If you have a system, for instance, for the UKM, surely your user is a student number or staff number. So you got the format of the pattern for the number. If user key in, like say, system for UKM, and then you key in IC, for instance, there is no K in the pattern, K or a P or A, isn't it? If you didn't have these three option key in for login, and then you already come up with the error. So that is the controller job, okay, to control the user, make sure that user enter something that right, okay, before go submit into the model. So this is the job of controller. Okay? So they're communicating, make sure the input is okay. After when they okay, and then you need to already check, a lot of checking. So checking, this is a controller job. Then the better result, the good result, when input that you want to provide in the model, make sure that it's a correct information. However, garbage in, garbage out is something that we can control for the controller. But if you provide something wrong value, garbage in, garbage out, we cannot control that. But we want to minimize. For instance, if you want to key in the metric number, then we can have the pattern, right? So if the pattern is not matched, and then you got the error, all right? Similar, to others as well, not only the input for the login, but similar to the UI when you key in data as well, right? So controller job to minimize a lot of functionality, work, So similarly into for instance, you want to create a system that I give you for the case study, for the case study in the class last time, if you are want to become members, right? You need to be a member of ATSM, understand, right? So that one, when you want to key in the student number, and then you have to controller communicate with the single sign-on, okay? mean the data existing of active student. Okay. So if not match, then we said, it's not valid or whatever. You can have the status of the student or the user itself, right? So part of the controller job is validate the user request, determine the user at the try to, especially for the URL or pass parameter or any form of element that you want to submit it. So you can have to check it, one to one. Usually when you have a system on web-based system, you key in, and then you submit in it. And it will check, or this is compulsory, not compulsory, all that one is the control job. Okay. To handle the UR, make sure data can keep in the database, right? Also, the responsible controller obtain the data from the model into response to the user and also select the next view to the client should see. So they reside. For instance, after you log in, then you have a logic there in controller. If the user is A and then come up with this, if user is B and come up with this, so that is also the controller job as well, right? Mm. Okay. Hello, are you okay? I scared I speak my I speak
Okay,
alone.
okay.
Okay, doctor. All right. So can we have a 5-minute break and then we continue the topic on controller till the end. All right.
Okay, doctor.
Right. We stop arrive. Okay. 5 minutes. We come back on 12:13. Give me some drink, little bit. Okay, we'll come back to next session. Our session now. Are you okay? Hello, are you with me?
Yes,
Yes,
Doctor.
madam. Okay.
Okay. So we continue on responsibility on controller. Okay. We finish that. So we look at the technology, that can be used, in applying the controller. Okay. So it's a layer, it's a control layer. So if you go in software development, okay, especially on Java-based architecture framework, you can have many types, it's like Struct. If you go to search like Struct, this is a kind of controller. Or Java server faces, so this is a kind of controller that we can use it. And usually, all these controller, they provide already the features, the standard possible features that already have. Okay. For instance, like login, when you have a login, there is a lot of features, like standard, you have emailing, error message or whatever that we provide is how the controller is supposed to react, it's already there that we built that we can use it. Yeah. So this is the good of the standard controller that we can use it, especially when you're handling all the kind of various type of input, you need to test it, a type of, for instance, like, for instance, you have a salary, okay, should be key in the number and with the, numeric, right? So all this controller helping the validating the user before sending the data. Right? So if you have applying, you use the standard kind of technology, a lot of features already there, right? Whereas we have to design from scratch, okay? For our this is my expectation, for our software design for your cases, I expecting something, the alternative is from yours, okay? Especially on the controller itself, okay? So what input you provide, need to test it in the controller, okay? But usually when you apply all these a controller to reply back to the user, a lot on, okay, implementation side rather than on designing. That's why when we design our system, we not really focus a lot on what kind of controller that a standard one that you need to provide, Usually we just focus on the whatever controller important to control the logic system requirement that you already have in each particular use case. Okay? For the small things, controller, we were assuming something that one is a standard that we need to apply. Okay? But for instance, like you get something, we not really, if we have a method, for instance, for the, even though in the designing, in our designing model, we provide the sequence diagram and the methods. Suppose a method in particular class, isn't it? That one is the standard one to fulfill the requirement. But additional method, for assessing for particular, for instance, set or get, for each particular attribute for the class diagram for a particular object or class, usually we assume that one is programming part. Okay, that standard every class suppose got that attribute. But what we did, the method is according the compulsory method associated to the basic requirement to fulfill the requirement. Okay, so this is need to differentiate. When you go to implementation later, sure, you got a lot of more method that standard for like set or get, that one, that standard you need to assess it, especially on applying the, just we showed just now the controller, okay? For instance, you want to modify, okay? Modify the, if you want to modify a particular class, all, that one you have a controller to handle for all. But if you want to modify for particular attribute for certain user, okay? For instance, if you are user, particular type of user, if you are owner of your profile, you can access, you can change it. But sometimes even the profile, you cannot change for particular things. You need somebody else need to change it. Okay, so that one is also logic controller that we need to provide it. Okay, before go to the model domain. Okay, and then when we go ahead for, this is actually descripting discussion on when you start to go to implement, you know. When you go to the deployment, so you need another descriptor function. This is I'm saying, you know, there is a lot of more function, we call it as deployment descriptor, that you need to provide beside of the others that we already have when you do the modeling. Okay, before that. Okay, so we have a deployment descriptor, deployment need to then sometimes, you know, you communicate with others, external, you know, that communicate with others, the external sources. So this one something that is not really, you know, while we are implementation later deploy, you need to provide it that. Okay. Especially when you do the deployment later lah. Okay. So this is something that the configuration, for instance, you know, something that we have, especially when you using the J2EE lah, Java. So a lot of important that we need to deploy before we start to have the environment in using the Java. So in terms of you, if you want to apply the implementation to deploy later, it's really you have to follow the framework, you know, because different framework, even though they are applying the MVC, but the way how they put it, the setting is different from others. So you need to go ahead to particular framework, but the most important you understood, you know, that in MVC, there is something that you need to provide it. Okay, especially when you apply the web-based system. Okay, what is the page layout, you know, what is the something you need to provide, you know, like so stretch or match, you know, for decorating. So everything, this one is depending on the framework itself to use it. Okay. Most organization, software development, for instance, you know, software house, you know, they already apply with standard framework development methods. You know. Even though what you learn here is like object-oriented is the basic concept that apply for software development, but usually for a software developer, they have already decide to apply what particular framework software development. So you need, however, the most important, the framework is adopt with two major idea, software method, you know, software development method, either the structured or object-oriented. And usually the framework will match with the these two type of software development. Okay. So when we're talking about the application framework, so many people will be using for different, but the concept apply what you learn is a bit similar. So you know, okay, if you apply this framework, you know, basic must be in the MVC concept, and then the UI is how the controller, how they apply the controller, because sometimes people using the facade, sometimes using the you know, facade or is use case, or you know, many different, you know, sometimes they have one particular controller, so the one is different from others people. So talking about another in deployment, when you go his aspect on security, who are responsible, how basically the data need to provide, you know, what kind of skin need to view every time. So all this one is inside our during the deployment descriptor later. Okay. So this is just example to show the flow, you know, which one step you need to provide to controller to view it, you know, to the user. Okay. Okay. So this is actually example for applying in XML style, okay, how data transform from the example for if you are applying the Java struct, how to configure the descriptor. Okay. Now we go ahead another session. Look at example, a simple requirement, and then how we apply the methods or associate to the model domain view. Okay. So based on this, we already apply your designing into the MVC. Right. So we look example for one cases user login, which is popular for most of you, Okay. So look at the requirement. So this is the requirement. Suppose, for the login. Okay. A student login, if authentic, she present with multiple contact information, such as this. She should edit any set information individually or may edit all type of at once. Yes, this is certain rules. Okay. So this is a simple requirement, and then the rules that you need when you do login. Okay. If local contact must include the email address. If local contact must be in California. Okay. Billing contact must include postal address. Permanent contact info must include postal address. So all this is rules, when you do the login, the rules that you provide. Okay. So similar for your cases must be different rules, Okay. So when you have, this is a rules here. So who are responsible to do implement about the rule itself? Okay. So if you look at the user interface, maybe you have the view welcoming. Okay. So you have something welcoming methods, in the view. Okay. So you got welcoming section there, and then you got also in view login, right? User password, for instance, right? And then you also have a view for login fail. Okay. So display the contact because it's associated with the what you want to have the display here. Okay. So you may also can have edit one contact, or you can mainly have edit many code. Okay. So error if one contact, if you change it, error one multiple if you change it. Okay. Display confirm edits. Okay. Edit successful, log out. Okay. So all this one is the methods that possible that be viewed by the in the user in interface, Okay. So module basically is standard, means that because of if you are system, this is the users, the student. So modules got entity. The entities means the class, So what is the class that you associate here? You got class student, and you got also the class for student contact info. Right. So means that association student has contact info. The relationship is one to many, something like that. Okay. And inside the model itself, what the action. Okay. This is actually the methods that you provide in the models itself, So it may log in, okay, log out, display, edit. So this is a method that provide inside the model. Okay. Because in these cases, you got student and contact number, and this is the method that possible, possible have in the models. Okay. So this is the method that you create. If you have a logic doing the sequence diagram, it means that this is supposed in here. But in here, it's not showing, the attribute, the method is belong to which entity. They combine it, all the entity here become what is all the action that you use it based on the model that you creating. But you got class diagram, okay, to represent the model. And here is become you combine all the attribute, combine all the methods associated to the scope of the domain software development that you have. So if you have 10 entity, then 10 entity, and what all you should meet, what list all the attribute associated to the model. And then also the rules that may use logic based on the model. This is rules, a lot, you know, the rules, the controller is different. Controller is more associated to the view, you know, upon of response from the model, right? But model, business rule exactly for the logic itself. So it seems something different, you know. Okay, logic, this one is rules requirement for the particular logic operation. Compared to controller here is more towards on association with the view. Okay, and also the associate with the response from the model. Okay, for instance, you know, something that data that you send it from the controller to model, and the output from here is different, and then you're expecting to come out something that you display to the view, right? So controllers are responsible to do it. Okay, that is the so you need to have, for instance, you have the controller, you know, the welcome controller, validate the login, okay? Because of people will log in the view, and then here checking the login itself, you know, whether if the M is successful, you know, okay, M is displayed, if fail or whatever. Okay, so this is the action possible happen when you log in. Okay, login fail, this one displaying the what is the login fail, right? But here is the logic, whether which one. If this if fail, what happened? If this one, you know, you got a state here. If M is success, you know, if M is a fail, then you display the login fail. Yeah? So this is a view that you setting. Yeah? So similar, you know, for the edit one action, so what possibility, error or confirm, looking at the possibility of the operation that you have. Okay? So this is all the possible happen to display to the user. Right? Okay? So this is the method that in controller and also the method in the model. So with this, we have a view layer, include one view user use case, and we present in all the attribute in here, right? And the model contains the object with entire object to represent the rules, okay, to edit data that required into the database, right? While the controller maps the requirement, okay, from the models and also from the view, both sides, how they respond between the view and the model, and model back to the user, to the view, right? So that is the MVC, how we map it into the MVC architecture based on the model, right? Okay, so that is our our session on the MVC. Okay. Now we look on the transformation, you know. Remember before you learn because the step, you know, before you just have designing use case sorry, before you learn on how you do the sequence diagram, association between the actor, okay, with the controller, we eliminate the UI that time, right? Because we don't want to have the more massive things. The important is what is the action between, what is the event goes to the controller, and controller associate with the model domain. Okay, now another step is now, so when you designing class diagram now, so you have a 3 type class diagram. One class diagram associate with the entity, we need the model, the class diagram model. One is the class diagram. Okay, the type of the class is a controller. Okay, and then one type class is more UI class. Okay, so this is how you got 3 layer. Okay, you got and when you said about the view or UI type class, then that one is basically associated to the platform, whatever you platform that you want to use it for viewing the user interface, right? Okay, remember when I teach you the assignment or project, you know, I said you need to provide you know, in the use case description, right? You provide, you know, refer to figure what? So figure that one is your UI, isn't it? Okay. So you got imagination that in the scenario, to fulfill the scenario means that you have the UI associate with the use case scenario. So now when you already identified the class, UI is a class, basically. It's a class user interface that fulfill the scenario. Okay. And now we're updating, you know, we're updating the UI associate to the our sequence diagram. Okay. Before we just straight away, you know, before, you know, if you want to say, you say, okay, registered, pass value, you know, we have from before. I don't know. Do you see my mouse or not?
Yes.
See, 1 minute. It's a bit noise, you know. Okay. You see my mouse moving or not? You
Yes,
see it?
Doctor.
Okay. So if can see, then you just watch it, you know. Okay. Before, if you have interaction here, sorry. Before, you have a controller here. For instance, like if this one is like whatever controller, depends on use case. But for this example, they give a main controller. So they have one controller for all the system, right? They call it a main controller. And then they associate with all the object. So previously, maybe, you know, when you have a controller, you want to log in, you know, you have one use case here, straight goes to the main controller, isn't it? And then you got pass value, user register, for instance, pass value, UI, and password, isn't it? Before. But now, you separate because of you associate with the UI. Okay, so you draw the UI, okay, in the process to get registration. Registration consists of 2 UI. So this is your decision, you know, when you have a flow on main scenario. Okay, so first, when you have the, you know, go to controller, you have a registration screen, for instance. So you activate the registration screen and you can enter the details, right? Okay, so if you click register, means the from the exactly the object for UI, you know, you enter registration detail and then click the register to the screen, you know, and then the registration screen will be validated. Okay, so this is mean that if you are providing logic validate the input, you know, you can put it in the screen, not necessarily to the controller. The earlier before, you know, when you go straight to the main controller, so the job, everything is go to the controller when we eliminate the UI. But after you have already the UI, you put it, so exactly, you know, what you associate to the particular UI. Okay, so click register, checking everything, you know, okay, and then the screen will respond. Okay, so at least, you know, missing blah 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 blah, got error alternative, you know. If no anything problem here, create new customer account, and this is start go to controller. Okay, and then create a customer. Yeah, when you have a create customer, new customer, and then okay, you send email for the object emailer. Okay, so from here you respond from the email notification, okay, and then you a success, when success, and then you open another UI, say pop-up UI or whatever, registration success screen. So this is, you need to naming the UI. Okay, so understand that. So from the sequence diagram, before you learn on the controller with the class diagram, now you add more UI, how many UI you are ready for a particular use case, and associate it with the controller. Okay. You can see that? So if you have designing a lot of UI, then you have to follow, you know, the step, how is it respond. If we focus earlier to straight go to here, maybe you will difficult bit. So we go to controller and then you upgrading, applying the each UI associate to the controller. So every use case, you have a sequence diagram and you add between that the UI for the objects of the for the UI itself. That's why I want to see your how you implement this. When you already have the sequence diagram and the next phase is adding your UI, and the UI is the class UI associate that what you enter, okay, to particular screen. Right. So if you got many, then many. So there is a lot of more logic. When I can see from your presentation last time, in your project, you are very good in terms of designing the UI. Okay. So I expecting something that you have a logic in UI a lot, you know. Okay. What possible, you know, even though you got many pop-up screen, that one is also as a UI as well for the creating the UI and then maybe close it after that, you know. Okay. You can get the idea? Hello?
I guess we get.
Right. It's not difficult, you know, just adding the UI that you draw it as object for UI, right? Then you update it, right? Okay, so that is the MVC. Okay. And the same time, we will go to your tutorial later, how we transform this into MVC class diagram, MVC architecture. So if you look here, you know, you have the view. So you got a register screen, register touch screen, you know, and you have two here, right? And then in the view, you have two here, and at the same time, you got the action for this one. Okay, 1, 2, and also 3, 4. Okay, 4. Okay, so there is a 4. I know you got 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you got 5. Okay, right. For the UI and the controller, you got 1. Okay? Controller 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 actually, sorry. And then 1 is for the controller, right? And okay. This one 1, 2, 3, 4. This 4. Because of this is the 1 through 3. We input 1, 2, 3, 4. This one is just the output. It's wrong, you know. From the user, this one, suppose, you know, the output only is not, you know, this is wrong way of drawing. This one supposed dotted only. You know? Okay, so in here, controller have a one method. No, customer creating nothing. This is method for the email. Usually we send it from ATP, you know, depending on the email. Okay. So that is the transformation between from the design pattern controller into the UI. Yeah. UI class. So at the end, you come up with the last version of your diagram, okay, and separate it into the view, model, and controller. Okay. Okay, so we will go next on tutorial. Right. So we go to UCAM folio. I'm sorry, I'm give you chance actually to submit the assignment. Okay. So will be end on assignment. This one will be deadline. Oh, 2nd June. Sorry. Okay. So deadline for assignment first, sorry, is a 2 June. Next end of this week, okay, on Sunday. Okay. We have a deadline for assignment 1, which is long time already. Hopefully by this time you already, understand about the question, creating the class, sorry, not class diagram, the sequence diagram, right? So you submit this. And project 1, you already finished. Presentation last time, for those not present yet, I did have several numbers of group only represent. Okay, so for those not presented, so next week, please contact me for those not presented. Okay, so this tutorial, we have tutorial, but after that we continue for presentation or vice versa. Okay? Because of when tutorial is face-to-face, to help you to ask your progress, presentation, right? Your project, especially your project. I do believe, I'm sure if you do it, surely you have something to ask. Okay. So I use the time during the tutorial to guide you your task beside of the assignment that we have here. Okay. Another assignment that I give you is mapping from the sequence diagram into code, okay, which is assignment 2. That one is a straightforward, I guess. So I don't want to have that tutorial, but unless if you have really problem, you can ask during the tutorial. So I have another assignment that need to submit is transforming code. 2004. Yeah. Okay. Let's transfer the interaction diagram into Java code structure. Okay. So if you look at here, okay. So basically, when I said here, online shop interface. So this is basically
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Hello. Are you see?
Oh, sorry, Doctor.
Okay. And so you have to answer this. Okay. So online shopping here, I didn't mention about the type of class in here. Okay. But we can see that the one shop interface is basically is UI. Purchase interface is purchase UI. Right. Item list is an object. Checkout is an object. Payment option also an object. Right. So this one seems like they are using the Facet design pattern. So your job is just to apply the sequence diagram concept into the Java code structure. Okay. So you need to identify the attribute. For instance, this is just display description only, search item, but you need to transform it into the suitable method that I teach you in the class. For instance, search item. Then search item should be, the name methods and the pass value. Okay. So means that the items here, search item. So you basically, you have search bracket and item ID, for instance, items. So if you search pass online interface here, search item, okay, you read here, you can understand search item not pass value because they will not search. But if you search item for particular, you can say also search pass value item and item query go to item list, maybe, pass value keyword, for instance. Okay. And then you go to item query, also same, you need a method, suitable method to provide and pass value. Okay. Suppose got back. So because of it's one day, suppose, they got dotted here. So I assuming something after query got result here. And then I choose item. I think you also know the way you do it, right? And then this is from the actor goes to purchase interface. Okay? So mean that the pop-up more. When choose item and display the purchase interface, right? from here, and then from just here, and then you know, they get select the item, right? And then you don't suppose, you know, what is it? One get the selected item, purchase item, get the selected item from here. And this is actually, you know, it's not view. Okay, because get select whatever in here, right? Actually return the value. The purchase item here will be displayed in here. Whatever they already select in here. Okay. And then they want to, because of the selected item don't have the query, the price, and then they're asking, okay, the item list, what is the price, and return the value. Actually, this guy suppose, you know, return don't value, this one dotted, you know. Sometimes this one is dotted as well. So suppose you don't need this one here. Okay. This is the value, go back to here, it's return value. So this is a function. Okay, the function and return to the purchase, right? So they get the query also same, return the value of the price. Okay, and then it shows the selected item with the price, okay, from here. Okay, and display. So this one is together. It's not dotted. Suppose dotted here. Okay. Suppose, because this is the UI. When UI is into with the actor, right? Okay, then there we submit and then authorize purchase to check out. So there is an interface to check out. It is a controller actually. But you assume this is an object. Yeah, it's object. After the authorize and then payment option. So you change it, okay? And this is return value. So basically the way it draw, you know, it's not consistent. But this one is written, this one is written, this one also the written as well. Okay? The placement info go back to the send notification. Because the purchase item means that in here we validate the purchase item, you know, the confirmation about the payment. Right? And send notification to the user. Okay? So next send notification basically is its display. But for me, suppose here send notification is not quite right in terms of, because of the send email, this one, the send email. You know, there is two, they display it and also send it email as well. Okay. The send notification, this one, you know, they're using this case because of when you look here from the UI purchase and straight away display here means that they come out the pop, you know, like message something, you know, it's not have another UI. It just pop up something. Okay. So means that payment validate, for instance, this amount. Okay. So, and then you display it in the screen. Okay. That is mean, right? So, but if you send notification and you got another UI, means that you got another UI to activate the UI for the notification. But for this case, you know, it's just saying something in the screen, you know, that the payment is successful or whatever. Okay. So you transform this into the structured model, structured into the structured code, which is these two is for the UI and others is for the model domain. So try to come up with the correct methods and associate methods to the particular object. For me, I advise you to transform this to class diagram first. After you transform the class diagram, then you can go to the coding. So the structure for the class diagram will be matched with your structure on programming. Just defining the attribute and the variables possible that you provide based on the case study. Okay. So you just make it assumption a lot, you know. For instance, item list, you know, item ID, something that is your assumption. Okay. Logically that you need to take it. Okay. So this is your creativity to identify, because we don't have exactly we don't provide you here the use case description. If you have this use case description, then you understand. Or I didn't give you also the class diagram, because the class diagram already describe the attribute, so you can pick up the attribute from there. Okay, for these cases, you know, you just assume about the attribute supposed to be in particular object. Okay. All right, that's all for today. Any question before we end our class? So reminder for tomorrow, okay? The session tutorial, suppose, present for the student who not presented yet, okay? And also, I try to cover some of the dependings, if for tutorial, I will update. I will update whether, I didn't discuss yet with Dr. Aisha, how the tutorial tomorrow. Okay? So I will update in WhatsApp. Okay. So any question before we left?
No, Doctor.
So how your project? Everybody go on with your project. Is it good? Is it good progress?
So, Doctor.
So, yes. So you try, the tutorial, we have 2 aims. Sometimes, I focus on the topic that we teach and we go tutorial, and sometimes we go to your project, progress your project and try to help you if you got the unsure things or, So the more you take our time, the more you get the assistant, right? If you not do it, then I cannot help. Last minute work cannot means for this project. Everything need to be gradually done. Okay, so no question. We ending our class today. We meet you Thursday on tutorial.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Doctor.
Right.
Thank you, Doctor.